Welcome to the British Football Guy, and welcome back, Ben. How are you doing?
Good. How we doing, good?
I'm doing, I'm doing good. This isn't a drunk episode, though it might sound like one. Um, we've been away for a little while, and I think the main reason with the Euro 2020 soccer championship has been on, and we're actually this is going to
Yeah.
be our first episode back before we do the Pro Rel episode, and this is a getting paid to poop one, so we are going to keep it to 10 minutes, but
Hopefully.
hopefully. And I'll look at the time on this just so it doesn't run long. So this is going to have a little bit of a soccer feel to it, but really just trying to think of it from a fan's perspective and see if there's anything in the NFL like this or if it can even compare. So to give everyone a little context, if you're not big into soccer, every 4 years the European international soccer teams meet, and this year it was in a multitude of European countries. So Ben, you were back in England, right?
I was back, yes. It was the first Euros that I watched where I actually supported a team and got into like the emotional side of it. So over the last few years, I've been getting more and more into like being a United fan per se. So I knew a lot of the players that were playing, even just through the entire Premier League, or even just being in the soccer world. Knew a lot of more of the names that were going around the team for England. I mean, most of the countries I knew at least one person on, right? So, was back in England, first time that I actually properly got into it as well. And it didn't let down. I mean, it did at the end, but I'll talk about that.
So this is it, and I think like because it's every 4 years, and we talked about we did an episode of like how could you make this for the NFL, but I think I want to take this from a fan's perspective. Is in 25 years ago, England got to the semi-finals of this same competition, and it was based in England. And the current coach was a player at the time, and he missed a penalty kick, which sent us out of the tournament. We'd played the better, we were better throughout that match. And as a 7-year-old boy, I do remember crying upstairs after he kicked it. Well, I think he hit the post
Hmm.
or something. But so you hold on to those memories, and I just want to kind of see like this journey, and I want to hear your kind of journey through this tournament. So, because most bars are kind of open up in the UK, they were kind of on lockdown a bit. So they didn't. I just kind of sent
Yeah,
videos back, and they
it
didn't
was
get the
interesting over
experience that
there.
we had in Houston, in New York, in Arizona, and California of these full bars. So it's interesting, but I kind of want to see you obviously following NFL since a child. Does anything come close to an international competition run where you get all the way to the final? Does it compare with getting all the way to the
It's
Super Bowl?
kind of. Um, I don't know if I fully grasp how special it is to be in the Euros at that point, like all the way through. It's also interesting because in the NFL you don't have like a national team or a state team that you follow the whole way through, right? That is comprised of different players. So I think that aspect is a little bit different. You don't have like a country pride thing. The U.S. doesn't have a country pride thing until we go to the Olympics. So I think that would be closer to watching, getting it close to that. But like for the NFL, like watching your team get to the Super Bowl is very exciting. Winning is exciting as well. I don't know if as many people get emotional, like getting to the Euros and then losing or winning, as they would like getting to the NFL Super Bowl. So don't think it's anywhere near the same there. You'll probably have diehard fans on either side, but it doesn't. It doesn't really, I think, do it for me. The NFL the same way that the Euros did. Right, the Euros come every 4 years. Lovely that they do. They come on the off years for the World Cup,
Mm-hmm.
which is another way to watch your sport at a different level. We talked a lot about just everything being good for the sport throughout this podcast for the last couple of months, right? I think being able to cheer for a team in the same sport is what helps create that fan experience. And in the NFL, I mean, it's just not as macro of a picture in general, right? You cheer for the same team every year, or you could say you cheer for a division to maybe do better, but it's not like where you've got a soccer internationally in general. Like you can have your favorite team in Brazil. If you're down there watching the Brazil league, whatever happens to be, and then you can root for all of Brazil. So your normal rivals, you're actually rooting for now if they're making it to the team as well. It's just a different way of being a fan and a different way, I think, of experiencing the sport altogether, which would be amazing if we could
Mm-hmm.
have it in the NFL.
And that's it. I think you kind of touched on it because NFL every year, the Euros, because it's just European um, countries you're playing against, people actually say it's harder to win the Euros than it is to win the World Cup because of the quality at every single piece. And if you think about the last World Cup that we had in 2018, it was 4 European teams in the semi-finals.
Yeah.
So I think it is really hard. But I think that, and I do kind of feel for Americans in this sense. Like you talked about the Olympics. I think this can't be the first time that I'm watching the Olympics in the US because I've been here for 7 years. So
No, you've watched it here.
I
You
must
watched
have
it when
watched
you were
it
in
here.
Houston already.
But this time I think it's a little different because I'm married. I also have a daughter who's American now, so it's like kind of watching it probably more with an interest in the US, but still, if they ever do show a British clip, because it is very, very heavily focused on just American athletes, which I get kind of, but
It's a little propaganda-y, yeah.
so and it's not going to be the same because obviously it's kind of behind closed doors this year, and I think the fans have a real impact. But I do feel that on this journey to the final, I am going to try and look back at it with fondness because knowing that if England got out of their group stage, they were going to play one of the best teams in the world, either Germany, Portugal, or France, in the first stage of the knockouts. And there was a good chance that even though we had such a good squad and team, we could come up short and it'd be understandable. But we didn't. And the first, actually, I went to a bar to watch the Scotland game. Now, with the Scots, usually, you've got great fans, great rivalry between the Scots and the English. The game was a complete letdown. It was a really poor game. But when I was in this British pub in Phoenix, pretty much the only English pub, out of the blue, this Scottish bloke walked in, and it's an English pub. It's not a Scottish pub. This Scottish bloke walks in with his kilt and just starts singing this Scottish song at the top of his voice, and everybody kind of just stopped and looked at it and was like, fair play, it's brave, maybe a little bit stupid, but it added to the atmosphere that you've just got somebody, I can't remember, it's like something the Charlie Boys are called, I don't know, it's like a Scottish song, but anyway, he was brilliant, and it kind of added to the atmosphere, and it was pumped. I mean, nobody scored, so there wasn't really it didn't even get close, so it wasn't kind of like the atmosphere that I was hoping for. But I watched it with a British mate that I play football with over here, and yeah, it was that experience. Fast forward to the Germany game, who we played in the knockout of 16. Personally, I know there's probably all the World War II and all that bullshit. It's not really about that. We beat them twice with the help of friends. But it's more about the Germans have beaten us in the 1990 semi-final penalty shootout, the 96 semi-final penalty shootout. They beat us in 2010 in the last of 16 World Cup. So it's
the first German team we really had a chance against. We had more of a chance against.
And so it's just kind of like this history that's ingrained as a kid. And it's just so different. Like, you just know this history. And all the other countries, I think, wear this on themselves as well. So then kind of after that, so in that game, I was at home. And I remember I had to move a bunch of meetings around because I was like, I can't miss this. I'll work late or whatever I need to do, but I need to watch this. I need to be there for it. So it was me and my wife at home, and I remember when we scored, I was kind of running around the room, not knowing what to do with myself. When Harry Kane got the second one, I was so close to crying, and it was just full of emotion that I had never seen. Like, Man United, our team, we got to a cup final at the beginning of the summer this year against Villarreal. I was bummed that they lost on penalties, but I recovered after that for about an hour. I wasn't like, because there's another chance they go again soon, and there's another chance. But that the kind of just a pure emotion that comes from international sports and team sports, I just think it's a shame that Americans don't have that. You can't talk about Major League Baseball and it's the World Series. There's only Canadian teams other than I think what is it, one Canadian team?
Yeah, it's well, they play baseball in Japan as well, but they don't compete on the same league even. So doesn't it doesn't really make sense. Like Super Bowl as well, they say Super Bowl champions of the world. I mean, they're the only people that play NFL football. There's other versions of the rugby where
Mm-hmm.
the NFL came from around the world. There's actually a lot of them, a lot more than there are the NFL. But I mean, it's the self-proclaimed, freedom champions of the world.
So, I mean, look, the other thing that I was thinking about, I was speaking to my friends back at home, and I said, look, well, I mean, if I kind of do this chronologically, so we beat Germany, nearly cried. Um, for July 4th weekend, we went to see family in Huntington Beach in California. And I said to them, I was like, look, England are playing in the quarterfinals. I'm just going to find an Irish pub. We found one pretty close to the beach.
Yep.
I went there, got there around about an hour early, thinking it's probably going to be quiet. There's not going to be that many Brits. It was packed. I mean, literally, somehow I managed to get a seat at the bar
Yeah.
on my own. And I met this random bloke, probably in his late 50s, early 60s. He had his 19-year-old son on the left of him. His wife was further down on the bar. And we just got talking, and his wife just kept on buying us Irish coffees. And it was just this, because we just dominated that game. England won 4-0. And
It's so
the,
good.
the bar was just pumping. They had British music, and it was just this, I don't know, the emotion, and everybody was happy. And it's so rare to have everybody just in, with all the shit that goes on right now, that was kind of really special. Where I took a picture with these two blokes that had kind of been spending, they never met, we'll probably never meet again, but I'll remember
No.
that game where we dominated for the rest of my life. The semi-final back at home, and again, still working, trying to fit that in and work that schedule out. And again, I think we got through on extra time to the final, and that was kind of a big just step. We've got past that. We've made it to a final for the first time in 55 years. So I think getting there, I was like, overall, it's going to be a good tournament. But the expectation is our team was so good to go out and not win in the final. I remember sitting with my mate. We ended up watching the final. My wife came with me. We met a couple of Irish people that were watching it. They said, look, there's this cigar bar that we're going to go, and we've got this kind of private room. So just, again, a really random place that we watched it. And when England missed the last penalty, just, I don't know, it's like had my soul sucked out of me, and just
Oh yeah, it was tough. That was tough.
I was waking up being elated every morning about this journey. And I'm going to look back at the good things and how well they've done, and the glass half full mentality that they have to be the favourites, or at least one of the favourites for the World Cup that's coming in 18 months in Qatar in air conditioned situations and matches. But
I think the rain helped us in some fashion.
Well, look,
we did play mostly home matches, if you
oh,
will.
that definitely helped. Like, don't get me wrong, that helps. But it's looking good for England. But I do have to think that we made it to the semi-finals in 2018 of the World Cup. England Rugby World Cup, they made it to the final last year. They made it to the final of the Euros. It's different, like not being like perennial losers or failures of team. It's always been soccer. I just don't know if US soccer will never experience in it. I don't think, because I just don't think it's ever going to be the number one sport. It might be
not a big enough. Yeah,
might be number two at some point in a few decades.
I'm surprised we don't get the volume of kids. We're getting into a different podcast potentially here, but the volume of players we have. I'm surprised that they don't get picked up to go across sooner to play. The problem we go against, and I think we've talked about this a little bit, is we don't have enough grassroots soccer here. As you guys have grassroots, that's how the clubs are based. That's how you guys bring your players up. They don't come up through the college system like you do in sports here, which I think we'll talk about in our Pro Row podcast.
Yeah, we need
coming
to.
up next. But so it's different. I have a hard time believing we don't have a small small population of people in the U.S., which could be just fine enough as far as numbers go to put together a decent international soccer team. And, our men's team isn't terrible. Really proud of the women's team. They won the
True.
last one against Japan, I believe it was. That's phenomenal. It's just that we don't develop the men's soccer team very well. We don't push for players that go and play internationally in the big leagues, if you will. Like, the MLS is for where the joke where all the English players come to retire, right? It's not like the MLS is the place you want to be when you're going up, like playing soccer as an American kid.
So because I know this is, we're probably squeezing out a larger poop here, so I'm going to try and nip it in the bud here and
Yeah,
kind of
it.
give you the kind of the last piece on this, because you mentioned two really important things. The US women's national team do tremendously at World Cups. The men's soccer team usually gets past the group stages. They're not a bad team. Your surrogate country in the Euros is England, so you've been able to experience that. Do you think, or is there any way that Americans will be able to feel, or I don't know, have that it's an emotion, and it's a really unique emotion.
Soccer fans of America will feel that. Other Americans who are watching because it's World Cup will feel it to a different, lesser degree, I think. Soccer fans, like I have a couple friends from when we were kids. They were the soccer kids. They watched all that stuff way before me. They knew about the English leagues and everything. Like they've had their teams. They're the soccer kids, basically. They watched all that stuff. They knew about the men's team before anybody else, kind of thing. Like when the games were playing.
Mm-hmm.
So those people, they've been following it. They will have that feeling, I think. I don't know how I will feel watching the men's soccer. I'll be very excited. Don't know who's on the team. Don't even know who the coach is. I
Right.
know we recently won the CONCACAF. I don't know how to say it,
Yeah.
but we're in a really good spot as far as qualifying for the World Cup. We probably will, but I think that gets solved sometime here in mid-July. But I don't know about that feeling. Not everybody.
Yeah. So look, I think it is a feeling of, just pure joy and togetherness, which is such a rarity. And I hope, Americans and we'll able to experience somewhat of it. But anyway, that's been the Getting Paid to Poop episode. Can we kind of replicate that feeling in US sports? But join us for our next one, and we're going to be talking about pro rel. Speak to you all soon.